Hello, welcome everybody to the Dojo Dirtbag. I'm Ethan Millick, and I've got some stories for you today. So here we go. Firstly, the New York Times came out with an article titled "How Fraud Swamped Minnesota's Social Services System" on Tim Walz's watch. Okay, under the title is "Prosecutors Say Members of the Somalia Diaspora, a group with growing political power, were largely responsible." Okay, so responsible for the fraud, I am presuming. Okay. President Trump has drawn national attention to the scandal amid his crackdown on immigration. Okay, let's get into it. All right, so let's talk about this. And then on Twitter, we have this guy who writes, Dustin Grady, a damning quote of Tim Watts' failure to stop the fraud consuming Minnesota. So the Somalia diaspora apparently is committing fraud. And we can talk about that. We try to find out what that means. Followed by a group called the Minnesota Department of Human Service Employees. So, Minnesota Department of Human Service Employees. So, it's the employees of the Department of Human Service. And this is Khaleesi, everyone. Nice to meet you, Khaleesi, everyone. And in basically, this group says they describe themselves as we are 480 current staff of the Minnesota Department of Human Services, DHS, with pride and commitment towards our work with goals of public transparency. Okay. So supposedly, what I'm understanding is that, and I'm an American. I'm not gonna fucking read this New York Times article. It's behind a paywall. I can't do that. But what I will say is, what I'm understanding is that the many people in the Department of Human Service in Minnesota have basically essentially identified or discovered fraud happening in their state, being done essentially by the Somalian members of the Somalian diaspora. Perhaps it's not suggesting all of them have been doing this, but like that somehow the system, how they've been using the system, has been fraudulent. Okay, that's an accusation, sure. And I talk about, and again, in the context of immigration and how honestly inhuman the system is for people, I don't mind that they're a little fraudulent. I've talked about this with my friends. It does not matter if you are saying you're a refugee, but you're actually an immigrant, because if you're still from a super poor country, then it doesn't really matter. You basically are a refugee. You're an economic refugee. Okay? So, Minnesota Department of Human Services, Human Service employees, 480 of them discovered that there's fraud, and then they comment on this New York Times article, or on somebody's comment on the New York Times article, and they say this whole long spiel about how Tim Walz is 100% responsible for the fraud. And it goes on. I'm not gonna get too into it. It's very right wing coded. I'm not gonna lie, and it's true that many people who work in social services are also right wing. It's possible. It happens. So it's very right wing coded. This whole thing. Fundamentally, Tim Walz is dishonest, lacks ethics and integrity, poor leadership abilities. Like, it just gets very like, fuck him, kind of. It's very fuck you, Tim Walz. Minnesota never had surplus. We had been given federal ARPA funds that were conflated as surplus money. Otherwise, we'd be in a deficit, and those ARPA funds, which were meant to be temporary funds, are used to create more leadership positions for Tim Walz's buddies. As such, we can't fight fraud in Minnesota alone, hence why we're appealing to the federal levels of government. We need help, and we can get Tim Walz's agency leaders have upped their brazen approach in covering up their knowledge of fraud. It's very just like they're evil, and they're trying to destroy our state, and him and his buddies are and there's cronies. We are grateful to numerous solid politicians, especially the fraud committee and media outlets who are trying to halt fraud. We are grateful to other whistleblowers who are bravely stepping up. Okay. Again, I didn't kind of go through the whole thing about how it's fraud. It's too long. It's too long. I didn't read. I'm sorry. It says there's fraud, and then it says Tim Walz's retaliation against the fraud. It doesn't really talk about. There's really I don't see exactly what the fraud is. Okay, programs, especially in behavioral health and disability services, were built without any guardrails against fraud, all in an attempt to extract more funding from the legislature and federal government. Okay, so I guess the fraud is that they're using money to spend on the incoming Somalian diaspora. Supposedly, that's what I'm understanding. And there definitely could be fraud, but again, like I've said, I don't really care. I don't really care. You're helping a bunch of people out. Give them money, give them resources, give them supplies, help them get assimilated, comfortable in our country, and let them thrive, and let them fucking thrive, and make America amazing. Uh, so I'm looking at it, and then now there's controversy that it's like, look, even Tim Walz's government doesn't. So then there's this comment. This is where I first saw this. Okay, from fucking James Woods. Tim Walz's own government is fed up with him. Fundamentally, Tim Walz is dishonest, lacks ethics. Da 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 da. So then he quotes it. Okay, so James Woods talking shit. Tim Young, I don't know who this fucking guy is, who had Tim Walz's own government turning on him on their 2025 bingo cards. Okay, that's 480 members supposedly of the Minnasota department, which probably has a lot of people. 480 is still a lot, but I'm not gonna undermine the vast size of the Minnesota state government, to be honest with you. All right, folks, I've seen metro parties. Okay, so there's a lot of tweets about it. It's kind of going viral. And so my thoughts on it, and then my final thoughts, I guess, generally, I just don't give a fuck. I just don't give a fuck. So you're trying to help Somalians. You're coded racist. You're coded, yeah. You're like, you're, what's the saying? Like, you're giving racist, okay? You're giving racist. I don't care. I don't care. There's enough supplies to go around. Minnesota's rich. And for what fraud ever there is, it's like, okay, well, you're going to get to power and then you're going to do your own fraud. So I don't really give a fuck. Like what's the example? The federal government? The federal government? No, the federal government is not the example of what I think fraud, who should be enforcing or monitoring fraud in any real means. Some of those agencies are good. I like them, and I think they need their support and resources and money to funding to do what they do, which is good. The FDA is good, but no, I don't really give a shit about some Somalians in Minnesota getting some money. As an American, if I was in Minnesota, I'd be like, okay, for instance, in New York, I live down the street from Creedmoor Housing, and the Creedmoor area, or what is it called? Complex? I don't know what it's called. Creedmoor. And yeah, they had a lot of immigrants for a long time until basically Trump got to power again, and they basically sent them away, and I don't know where they went. A bunch of them, mostly men, which again we can talk about what that means with men and immigration specifically, but ultimately I don't care. Immigrants are good. We should spend money on them because they will absolutely spend money into our economy and spend money on us. So they'll enrich our culture, enrich our lives, enrich our communities, right? That's what immigrants do. They enrich us. They make us stronger, better, more more everlasting, right? If you want America to last, you need the culture to be able to assimilate. It's unique in that it's a civic identity. It's unique in that it's a civic ethnicity. So I like being American. I like that America is multiracial, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious. I love that about America. That is what I love about America. It's so cool. It is so fucking cool. And we should celebrate that. So, Somalians? Hell yeah. I've never even had Somalian food. Why are there not Somalians in my neighborhood where I can eat their fucking food? That's what I say. That's what I say when it comes to fucking immigrants, okay? I go radically positive with immigration because we're so radically negative on immigration that I go. Hold on, watch this. That I go positive on immigration. Okay. So that's what I'm going to say about that. I don't care about Tim Walz, and I don't care about his government turning on him. That means nothing to me. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. Sometimes governments don't like their executives. I don't know what to tell you. Doesn't make a difference to me as a citizen. And ultimately, yeah, okay, I'll have empathy. I'm sorry, I'll have empathy. It does suck. I do understand why it could suck that you're working social services and there's like a bunch of money being wasted, but I'm not getting that. I'm not getting that from them. We like talk about it. If it's the Somalian community, talk about that. Say like, oh yeah, the Somalian community, like here's what's happening. They have used this money in this way that not okay, and that's affecting other people who need these types of services or support or whatever. Okay, well, talk about it, explain it, and then um, don't. It's not a big. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know how big of a deal it is or big of a controversy it is, but you know, I'm again I'm pro-immigrant, so I get how some so in some cases you may feel as a resident of a community that those resources are being given too much into the immigrants. And then I empathize with that, but that's like you need to call on your government. It's like what you need to do as an activist when you see a problem, right? Because you're seeing the problem of too much immigration. Well, you need to see the problem of immigration is conflicting with my way of life and in a harmful or negative way. So it needs to be something needs to be changed. Um, not it's fraud. People need to go to jail. This guy's the worst guy ever. We need to elect Trump in 2028. No, that's not what you do. That's not what you do. So if immigrants are affecting your life in a negative way where you feel literally negatively impacted, not that they're sitting on a bus with you. Okay. Oh my God. Um, if because I'll tell you what, it's not economically. It's not economically. They're not affecting you economically. They might be making you feel uncomfortable being in your space. And if there's just too little room, like if you have to stand on the bus every single time, okay, that's a problem. Maybe you can mention that. Be like, hey, there's not enough fucking buses for all the immigrants. It's not, I want to send the immigrants home or put them in a concentration camp or criminalize them or split them up from their family or hunt them down like animals. No. What you do is you find another bus to commission and you build infrastructure to support the new people in your community. Not that hard. Not that hard. Okay. Um, and the New York Times article might highlight some of those things. I'm not. I don't care. New York Times is fake news. New York Times is fake bourgeois news. Okay. Okay. I'm not gonna say that, but yeah, it's tough. I'm not gonna. I can't. Whatever investigation. I'm sure the journalist is good. I'm sure he did investigations, but you know, you're presenting it as like, look at this harm that's been done by this person at this time, like, or you could just say this is what's going on. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I have obviously a left wing bias and slant in me, but maybe let's look up the article. Let's see if I can. Again, I can't access it, but let's see. New York crimes. Tim Walz. And yeah, I don't care about those 480 workers turning on. I care about them as people, as Americans, but I do not give a shit about them as like a political force, right? I just don't care. Okay, I have a Tim Walz section, but it doesn't have the most recent. How fraud swamped Minnesota. Okay, so I do not have. Oh my God, do I have to pay for this app though? If I have to pay for the app, I'm not doing it. Exactly. They could do ads. Come on, they could do ads. What the fuck? Subscribe for unlimited access. Oh my God. I'm gonna try my personal. But we'll see. Alright, it's not working. Alright, sorry, stream. Sorry, chat. Um, alright, I don't know how long I've been going, but let's try another. Let's do one more story. Literally paywall. I got paywalled. So I'm not gonna give you. I can't give you any more context than what I've been given access to. I'm sorry. As a working class uh, American, I'm sorry. I can't. All right. Let's look. Let's look. Oh my God. I'm not gonna get into Ilhan Omar right now. We just talked about Somalians, Minnesota Somalians, so I think I'm good for now. But they are giving Ilhan Omar a lot of grief because of a tweet of her being heartbroken over the passing of Specialist Sarah Bechtrom, a National Guard member who tragically lost her life in a horrific shooting in D.C. And then she's praying for a swift recovery for Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. And now, oh man, right when they lost their shit at that tweet, they lost their shit, which is hilarious because like fuck them, like they're just idiots. She's saying like the nicest thing, like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear about this. I'm an American. I care about the National Guardsmen." They hate her. They hate her so much. They're so fucking racist. They're so fucking racist. That's why anything really to do with the whole Somalia Minnesota thing, I can't get past like the image of it being so like racist coded and right wing coded. Um, we'll get there. We'll find something. Oh, okay. Well, we'll do a meme. We'll have some fun. All right. So there's a meme here. What the war is now as two soldiers. See, I wish I could just pull it up. I should be able to pull it up actually, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna just show my phone. That's lame. Um, what the war is now, and it has a soldier with a Russian flag, soldier with a Ukrainian flag pointing guns at each other, and then it says what the war must be, and then it has two soldiers with communist flags and two guns pointed at Putin and Zelensky. Based. I guess that's really all I can say. Based. I'm sorry. I'm no like crazy commie revolutionary guy, but I'm sympathetic. I'm definitely sympathetic. Okay, this is some. Department of the U.S. Department of Labor put a tweet that said the fight for Western civilization, capital W, capital C, has begun, and Americanism will prevail. And then it has Lincoln with 11 stars around his head, and in German it says Americanism will prevail. Not German, but in the German font, the Nazi font, as they say, Americanism will prevail. So Americanism, already right there, politicizing my civic identity is not cool. So fuck you. Or I'm an American. I'll be an Americanite. All right. Like if we really want to do Americanist versus Americanite, I'll do it. I'm an Americanite. I don't care. The fight for Western civilization. Whenever they capitalize Western with W, especially the letter W, I feel like it means white. So the fight for white civilization has begun, and Americanism will prevail. And then they also do Lincoln with 11 stars, the 11 states of the Confederacy, rather than however many stars of the Union. So it's very like super white nationalist coded. Even going for the Confederacy, that's hardcore. That's hardcore. They don't look at it as insurrection. They look at it as like temporary self-division, essentially. But no, they were not Americans or whatever. But I am sympathetic to the idea of a Confederacy, but not for the sake of defending slavery. I said what I said. Slavery, yes, slavery. So Okay. All right, I think that's good for now. We could pause it, take a look, review, maybe keep it on private. But this was a good video. Good start, good stream. I got in good flow, got passionate. I'm talking, right? Talking. Hey, I'm cold. But I'm gonna eat a little bit, and then maybe we'll try again if there's time.